So let's explore the way that increasingly East Asian culture is is impacting the rest of the world and is shifting where the popular culture that people consume, the movies, television, the music, where that is being produced and where the money goes. So this culture flow of the things that people want to consume and use to entertain themselves is increasingly two ways. And when I say that, I mean between East and West. That kind of loosely the East meaning Asia and the West meaning especially the United States and Europe. For a very long time, the United States and Europe, though the leading producer of popular culture has been the United States since World War II, that Europe and the United States have been the producer of the popular movies, the popular art, right? The TV shows and the music, all of those things that people use for entertainment. The main producer has been especially the United States. And everything from Coca-Cola to Disney has spread around the world and impacted other countries. But now that flow is increasingly two ways. Things that are coming out of Asia are increasingly popular and driving their own revenue streams and shifting markets, shifting interests, and leading to whole new economic patterns. And of course, this is part of globalization, that theme that we have been talking about all semester long about the interdependence of regions and about the increasing interconnectedness of things like economics and culture. So this has been increasing, especially over the last 25 years. It started largely with Japanese culture and things that are on this page. Japanese products became really popular worldwide, especially video games like Nintendo and manga and anime. Right, you only need to look at Netflix to look at the continuing popularity of anime. And so this worldwide phenomenon really kind of began with the popularity of Japanese products, but it has continued and increased as South Korea and China have started to produce their own movies, their own music, their own television shows, and those have diffused around the world as part of globalization and become increasingly popular. Now, this isn't something that just started in the last 10 years or even the last 25. This is not an entirely new trend. There were things like Godzilla movies, monster movies, for example. Those started really in the 50s and the 60s in Japan. This kind, that Godzilla movie. And they were popular. They spread. They were very popular in the United States for a while. But there wasn't a great deal of other popular culture that was coming from Japan spreading to the rest of the world. It was these kinds of monster movies and then the kaiju movies, and then not a great deal else. But they continue to have an impact even today. We have movies like Pacific Rim. There have been a number of Godzilla movies that have come out the last couple of years. This continues to be a very popular theme and a very popular form of entertainment. But now we're seeing other shifts and things like the Chinese box office, right? The number of people who go to the movies in China, the growing middle class there that is very interested in consuming movies. China is increasingly producing its own movies. Their movie industry is nothing like the ones that we have seen in terms of like Bollywood and Nollywood. It's not that level of production. But there's a long tradition of movie making in places like Hong Kong and in Shanghai and other places as well. And so in the first quarter of 2008, Chinese box office was higher than what has traditionally been the largest box office in the world, North America. So that's an interesting shift in where the money is being produced. And then this is from 2008 as well. This report was saying, well, China's going to dethrone the United States as the box office leader of the world in less than 5 years. And movies like monster movies and movies with The Rock in them, which are very popular in China, that is really good news for people who like those things. And you can see this growing interest, right, and the growing prominence and importance of the Chinese market with things like the latest Transformer movie has Stanley Tucci's character drinking milk from China. And many of the movie scenes take place in Asian countries. So appealing to that audience is increasingly important for movie makers, no matter where they are. There was that huge extended fight scene in Seoul, in South Korea, in Black Panther. So there's an increasing amount of an effort to appeal to that international market, especially in China and South Korea. And then last November, it didn't take 5 years. The Asia Pacific region became the world's #1 box office region. And again, this is globalization in action. This is a shift in change and of revenue streams, of who's going to be the major producer, who are the most popular people. And there's so much money involved in this that, of course, other countries would like their own share. They would like to knock the United States off the throne of being the world's leader in popular culture production. So it looks like movies are kind of the leading edge of this. $16.7 billion in the Asia Pacific market. Now that's more than just China. Okay? It's more than that, but it's still 40% of the global total. That's pretty impressive. And then, of course, there's the music that's coming out of East Asia, specifically South Korea. And I know this song is several years old now, but of course, I'm sure you're quite familiar with it. There's Psy, and his most famous song was Gangnam Style. And so I want to talk about that just for a minute, because the impact of K-pop, K meaning Korea, right? So popular music from Korea, has really shifted in some interesting ways in the last few years. So Gangnam is a district in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. And it is kind of a combination of Beverly Hills and Silicon Valley. So it's kind of a combination of new money and tech and very rich people. And so it's this area where a lot of people want to live and where very wealthy people live. So it's a symbol of the fast growth and development that has been happening in South Korea in the last few years. Because there's been really, really rapid development in South Korea since World War II and the Korean War. It is now, when we talked about North and South Korea, we talked about the fact that South Korea is very focused on things like circuit boards and cell phones, and they are a very technology-focused country. They are now one of the world's most connected and wired countries. That's what this map shows. And the numbers here are percentages of people who use the internet at least occasionally or have a smartphone. And when you look at the internet speed, I should have said, South Korea is one of the very highest with 94%. When we look at internet speed, South Korea is at the very top of the list. The amount of speed, the numbers aren't important. What's important is the fact that South Korea has the fastest internet in the world. They are increasingly very well wired and really connected. So here is Seoul, part of Seoul. This area is Gangnam, down here. And there's a lot of growing concern about that wealth and development and all of these changes that have happened since World War II, if it's all it's cracked up to be. And some examples of this are things like the amount of credit card debt that people have in South Korea is about 155% of the people's disposable income. So the amount of money that people have more debt than they have money to spend. The record in the United States right before the recession in the late 2000s was 138%. So we're talking some significant debt here. There's also groups of people who work very hard to have kind of the image of everything, even if they can't actually afford it. These people, when they're women, are often called soybean paste women because they walk around with the latest purse and the latest clothes and a latte. But when they go home, since they've spent all their money on all those fabulous things, all they have money left for to eat at home is soybean paste, right? Which would kind of like be eating, mac cheese, right? That kind of thing. So there's this image, but underneath it, there are some serious problems. And one of those other problems is there's an increasing problem with alcohol abuse. So we talked about alcoholism in Russia and how much it's affecting the population, how many effects it's having on health and well-being and fertility. And here's the number of shots per week of any spirit that people are consuming. This is hard liquor consumption. So we talked about how serious the use of alcohol is in Russia. They drink an average, according to this, of 6.3 shots per week of hard alcohol. South Korea, double, more than double that. We talked about how widespread the problems are in Russia. So now imagine how widespread this growing alcohol problem must be in South Korea. I have linked this article below so that you can read more about this. And this is a serious and growing problem. So this is also something to keep an eye on. I'm gonna pause here so that I don't have to really rush through the last slides, and we'll finish talking about globalization of culture in the next piece.